What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Mackenzie1, Mackenzie985, more inside, whichever of those names that you know me by, and welcome back to another chapter review for the 20th Century Boys manga. This is for Volume 1, Chapter 3. Now, this chapter was more intensive, it was more focused, and it had a clearer through line than the other chapters so far, which is what, only 2 chapters. But this one focus was on Kenji, and Kenji's love affair with rock and roll, Kenji's love affair with the guitar and music itself, and it kind of shifts really quite fast between flash forwards through his life. So they initially start in 1969. Now, we haven't seen 1969 mentioned yet in the chapters or anything like that, even though they've danced around at 69. They danced around 1970, 73, 1997, that kind of thing. But now we get to see 1969. 1969 seems to be a crucial year, it seems, for Kenji, because this is where he developed his love affair of music. Now, just a brief overview is the chapter starts off with him in his childhood with his friends and stuff, and they've got a radio, like an old school radio, the kind of radio you'd probably have in 1969, and you know they listen to English radio, you know, Far East Network, or they listen to English programming and that kind of thing. And there's music coming on, and none of his friends seem to appreciate the music that comes on. So when the rock and roll starts playing, the song that comes on is the Rolling Stones' "Jumping Jack Flash," which I'd assume was maybe a big song in the West in 1969. Now when that comes on, he seems to, you know, when the music comes on, you seem to have an affinity for it. You seem to be drawn to it. His friends, when he started talking about what's it called, Rolling Stones and Jumping Jack Flash, his friends then assumed they were wrestling moves. Well, what's wrestling moves? That's like a move that, it doesn't sound like a move that my wrestling does. It sounds like a wrestling move, or sounds like something an anime character would do, a special move, or a super, you know, a special move or something like that. So that's where he got the ear for that music. Then it cuts forward to 1973, and he's in school, and you can tell that, you know, he's got certain dreams. You know, he's playing air guitar with a broom, you know, and he's just kind of imagining it in his head. You know, he's got this fantasy of being a rock star, a rock and roller, a guitarist, and no one can seem to understand. And you know, many geniuses in our time have never been understood until much later, and you know, where everyone loves them up. So then they flash forward again, and he's a delinquent, basically a delinquent that's, you know, learned to play guitar, that kind of thing. Having bought a guitar after 1973, Yamaguchi, this is a girl we've been introduced to, Yamaguchi, she comes across him with a guitar that he paid 4,000 yen for and something, and she quips that, okay, if you want to play something like rock and roll, you know, you need an electric guitar, but you can't afford it. You can't play, you know, music like rock and roll on a folk guitar. And you know, she astounds him with her knowledge about guitars. But you know these people that go in head first. Kenji seemed to be very much led by his dreams, single-mindedly throughout there. But whether or not he put the commitment in is revealed later on. So when we flash forward to him in his high school years, we see that he's just a delinquent. He's missing skipping classes. He has friends who are kind of punk, dressed kind of punk, and Naoki Urasawa seems to capture that punk vibe with the dress wear, with the long hair, with the kind of the way they've drawn the faces, kind of stroppy. You know, punks are kind of like always on the side, stroppy, but Naoki Urasawa's kind of aptly demonstrated that he can draw that kind of look on someone's faces. Now, you would not recognize that as Kenji from the future, from the present day, 1997, but that was him at the time. And you know, unfortunately, one of his friends, Spider, who is an aspiring musician, was in a band called the Flying Spiders, and he was Spider. He managed to make it. You know, he's only briefly mentioned that he makes it, and he ends up performing in the Budokan, which is probably the most prominent place to perform live music and that kind of thing. And then we flash forward to 97, and you know, he's in the convenience store, and you know, with Kano on his back, and you know, I actually, you know, I got emotional there. You know, like, he had dreams, man. We get to go more into his dreams, and we get to see that he never became the musician that he wanted. He never excelled at the guitar like he wanted, you know. Throughout his whole life, all he would seem to play is Rolling Stones, Jumping Jack Flash. And I actually went to the side and listened to that music. And I can imagine a little kid listening to that music at the time. And get a feeling for, it's just one of those moments that you see in films when a child, starts to absorb things, and you know that once he has absorbed it, this is going to be him for the rest of his life. um, he comes across Yamaguchi again, one of his schoolmates, in the one of the other flashbacks, but she's not called Yamaguchi anymore. She says, refer to me as Miura. I think she's married. She has 3 children, and she catches up with him. She goes, what are you doing now? Like, are you still playing guitar? She goes, nah. He goes, nah, look at my hands. They used to be rough and smooth. Now they're soft and squishy, You lose the guitar thumb, which is basically a reference to losing a guitar thumb, when you're constantly plucking and that kind of thing, or playing the guitar. And, you think to yourself, you know what? He's resigned himself. As I keep mentioning, he's resigned himself to that life completely. And then what happens is when he says my hands are soft and squishy, it transitions into friend saying that the world will end. The world will end very soon, but all of you here are saved. He's a cult leader and he's telling his flock that all of you are saved. Now that moment was really sinister. I'm like, I love these transitions. They keep transitioning from Kenji or his childhood, or Kenji doing something, and then the scene changes to an exact, the counterpart to that, you know, and then they open up into the friend and what he's saying, and everything that with the friend so far has been him addressing an audience. Now I'm still wondering who the hell friend is, you know, what are these transitioning? What do these transitions mean? Now, in the beginning of this chapter, but now let me get to the analytics of it. In the beginning of this chapter, they're all discussing doomsday scenarios. The children are talking about floods taking over, aliens taking over, meteorites attacking the world, something. And Kenji's like, you know what? I'll fight, no matter what. He seems to be presented with different doomsday scenarios, and he goes, I'll fight. And then amongst that, which is something to know, is atomic. How are you going to stop an atomic bomb, Kenji? How are you going to stop that kind of thing? And they're talking about the sun, explosions happening on the sun and overheating our planet, ice melting, the world flooding, or global warming is what that means. But they mention atomic energy. They don't show it, but they mentioned atomic blast, basically. And they go, how are you going to stop an atomic bomb? Now, 1969 was obviously, I'm guessing, just towards the end of the Cold War, as the Cold War was, well, not even the end of the Cold War. It was probably after the Cold War. But there was obviously a lot of Cold War paranoia going around at that time. Russia, America, the doomsday clock and that kind of thing. Now, the risk of nuclear war was a very, very big thing in the Cold War and that kind of thing. So there was always uh, Cold War paranoia going on in that time period. So that's why even the kids were talking about, the threat of nuclear war and that kind of thing. That's something I picked up on. What I got from Kenji in his youth is he seemed to be not the alpha male, but the spirited guy who was wise beyond his years. He's really wise beyond his years. He had a lot of dream, and obviously young children who are dreamers are wise beyond their years. They're really smart people. Whether or not life gives them the opportunity to do those things, we don't know. And obviously, when Kenji's sister disappeared and left him with the child, he was lumped with that. He couldn't do anything. He had to look after Kana because he's a nice, gentle soul. Nothing more really I can say about that. We were introduced to Miura. We were introduced not really to anyone else. This was a more Kenji focused thing, but also name drops in this were Rolling Stones. Obviously, Keith Richards was name dropped in this. Now, my impression of this chapter is this is Naoki Urasawa himself bringing something of himself. Now, you guys let me know, is he a musician? Is he into music? You guys probably know more than I do, but I feel as though this guy Naoki Urasawa has a affection for the late 60s, early 70s of music. I have a feeling he's got an affection for rock and roll of that time period. Otherwise, it seems very steeped throughout this chapter, music focused, and even the chapter's called guitar something. I forgot what the chapter was called, but guitar, and it seemed to have a permanent theme throughout about Kenji, trying to fulfill his dreams of becoming a rock and roller, guitarist, rock and roller. So I feel as though Naoki Urasawa brought some of himself, his own likes and that kind of thing to it, because very much I feel there's a kind of rebellious punk nature to it, punk rock and roll, that kind of thing, that permeates so far throughout all of the chapters I read so far. So really, that's all I have to say to that. There's nothing really to nitpick uh, in this. Nothing, no really major development, story wise. But it was a good insight into, Kenji and how he is. So hope you enjoyed that. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter for the latest live reaction updates at MoInside1985 at MoINSYED 1985, all lowercase, all one word. But quickly before I forget, also I tried to look in the lyrics of the Rolling Stones Jumping Jack Flash. Those it's pretty graphic lyrics for its time. They're pretty graphic lyrics, even for children of that age. It's pretty graphic if you look at the lyrics for Jumping Jack Flash. But none of the lyrics so far have any relevance on the story yet. But that may change in the future. So I thought I'd add that on. So thank you for watching.